Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing day 9 Scrap Squad's 12 days of summer scraplifts, and I'm using the lovely Simple Stories Simple Vintage Garden again. I love this scraplift from Julie Taylor. Again, Julie Taylor, you know how much I love her. I like that the title is on the left hand side. It took me a little bit of a while to work out what I was going to do here. But although Julie used a scalloped edge on hers, I decided that I was going to tear the edge of mine. I go straight in with the title after that because I wanted to show you how I make sure that I end up with a 12 by 12 without worrying about how big to cut the pattern paper that I'm putting the title on. So first of all, I'm measuring the title against my T-ruler because I'm a bit worried. The place we went to was Ulster Folk and Transport Museum, but I knew in these thickers that wouldn't all fit on. But the bit that we're in where we took this photo was the Folk Museum, so I'm just putting Ulster Folk Museum, and that's absolutely fine. It's a place close to my father-in-law in Northern Ireland that we took the children to, and we had an absolutely glorious day. It's just looking at all things from Northern Ireland of the past, and they've rebuilt houses and farms and schoolhouses. It's an absolutely wonderful place to go to. So here I am, as I say, just finishing up putting my title. And then you'll see I position that where I want it to go on the patterned paper. Just finding an E in another packet. So there, it just fits. So now moving them all up and using the T-square to make sure that it's all level. Now these are quite old letters, chipboard letters, so the adhesive isn't great, but it's just enough to hold it on the paper until I stitch through them, which is what you'll see me doing in a minute. So just pressing down, making sure that they're all adhered. And then here we are, stitching through. And I do 2 lines of stitching through them just to make sure that they're absolutely secure. And I also quite like the look of the effect of it. So just bending the paper around to get it under the machine. And then when I've stitched the title down, I come back in with the torn edge of the white cardstock, check that I'm happy with the positioning, and then I stitch that on as well. And I think I do about 5 lines of stitching on here, all wonky. I don't do straight lines, just so that it blends in with the torn edge. I quite like the effect that that gives. So back and forth with the stitching. And this layout came together very quickly actually. Once all the stitching was sorted, it was just a case of adding ephemera and mats to the photo. So you'll see I'm stitching with the paper still as a complete 12 by 12 underneath the cardstock. And then what you can do is, you'll see me doing it in a minute, you trim off the excess of the pattern paper from the back, and then you use your trimmer to cut the entire layout down to 12 by 12. So then you're not worrying that you don't have enough of the pattern paper to add your title and stitch it onto the cardstock. So here we go, just checking that it is 12 by 12. Cutting the pattern paper off so I can use that another time. And then trimming the edge to make it 12 by 12. So there we go, that's the base of the layout done. And then I just check that I'm happy with how it looks, and then I'm going to go in with some washi tape, secure the edges of the sewing threads, and secure the edge of the paper down onto the cardstock as well. Any tape would do for this, I just grabbed a piece of washi that I had out. So now for the photo. And whilst I like the way that Julie's taken hers off the page, it just doesn't suit my style. So I'm just going to add some mats behind it and keep it to the right hand side of the page. And I think that's what scrap lifting is all about, is taking inspiration from somebody and then making it your own. And you'll see here, I'm a very lazy scrapper. If I've got scraps of paper that will work for the project I'm working on, I don't cut into bigger pieces because I'll just make those work for what I'm doing. So these are all bits from previous projects that worked as mats, so I'm using them. And then I decide, I'm still looking at that lace, but it's not right for me. So I decide to mat the photo on some white cardstock, just finding a piece that's big enough from my scraps. And I make a bit of a hash of this. I stick it on, trim it down, but the edges aren't even. So then decide that I want to distress the edges with my Tim Holtz Distress Edger. And the edges aren't really quite big enough. It works out in the end, but I could have done with cutting them a little bit wider, really. So you see there's quite a tight border there. But then when I trim these edges, I make it slightly bigger in error. And instead of using the trimmer to cut it down some more, because this card's a little bit flaky, I don't know whether I need a new blade on my trimmer. I use my scissors to trim it down. Still not entirely happy, so I think, right, I'll distress the edges. And I don't know whether you can see that gingham piece at the top, the checks. The left-hand side isn't straight. It takes me ages to realise that, but I do before I stick it down. So once I've done one piece, I decide that they all need doing. A quick check on the reverse of that paper to see if it was a different colour that I wanted to use, but I do like this blue. It blends nicely with Amelia's grey dress, so. And this was a photo from back in 2013. I remember it like yesterday. It's so funny how the years slip by, isn't it? And I have a bit of an obsession with label tags. I think I've mentioned that in a previous video for adding dates. So I wanted the label edge to poke out on that last mat so that I can add the date to it. That one there that I'm touching now, that's the bit with the label on it that I want to make sure it's showing. So just checking the positioning, get rid of all the paper dust. And then I'll stamp the date before sticking it all down. And here we go, just sticking all the mats down together. Once again using scrap cardstock for my matting. I don't like to waste anything if I can help it. Not quite happy with the positioning there, so just moving it over so that the label bit isn't quite so big. And now going through the ephemera, I pulled some bits out that I wanted to use on this layout, and it's just working out exactly how to position them all. Takes a bit of fiddling, but I get there in the end. I really wanted to get this better together in, but it doesn't work on this cluster. But I do get it on the layout in the end. And I decided it's time to stick the photo down. I'm happy with the positioning. Just checking all the mats are stuck together. And taking it right to the edge of the cardstock there. And then I just want to flick through this sticker book and see if there's anything there that I can add. That says use your wings and fly. I thought it was quite nice to go for my two. And then I wanted to use one of these white flowers to echo the flowers that I've got in that cluster at the bottom left hand corner. I'm working out which way to have the butterfly flying off, because the bigger one is flying off to the right. I wanted that one to fly off to the left. I don't like them to all point the same way when I'm doing a layout. And then gluing everything down. I didn't want too much dimension this time, so I just kept everything flat. Just bending up the wings, and you'll see I put my foam tape under the wings to give it a little bit of dimension, just to make it look like it's flying. And that just keeps them popped up when they go in the page protector in the album. Because the butterfly is on the foam, I want to add this Natural Beauty title on the foam and just distress the edges ever so slightly with my fingernail, just because all the mats below it are distressed. Still want to get this Better Together title on, and I think, oh yeah, it looks quite nice there. So, and I love these label stickers. There's something else just to layer underneath and add a bit more detail. And then I start looking above the date. I'm not happy that that label sticker's all blank above the date. Oh, I added a tab first of all at the top, just because they're there. So I'm looking for something to add to that label. And I like that, but I didn't like that you could see the bottom. It just looked a bit unfinished. So then it's looking for something else. I try a heart, but I'm not quite happy with that. Let's see what else is in. And see that lovely little white butterfly. And we've got 2 on the page, so 3 just completes the trilogy. And then I decided I do want to do ink splatters, so just using the back of the packaging to splodge down my Bundled Sage Distress Oxide. I've said before it's one of my favourite colours. Watering it down and then splatting, and then when I finished doing the splattering I noticed that I've got a smudge at the bottom of the page. I was so annoyed when I saw it, but you'll see I paint over it with the wet brush and allow that to dry, and in fact that's where I add journaling. I don't do it on camera, but afterwards, once it's dry, I think it's a good place to add a little bit of journaling, and it does look really nice when it's done. So mistakes happen, but there's always a way of covering them up. So just adding some splatters to that wet paint so it'll just cover it up nicely. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll leave you with some close-ups, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.